Who wants breakouts? We all do. Let's discuss on Fantasy Baseball today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Thursday, July 21st. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Chris Towers, and let's use first half breakout archetypes to predict second half breakouts. So, Dansby Swanson has been amazing so far in the first half. He had some prospect pedigree. He's flashed a little bit in the past. Chris, do you see a player that can break out in a similar mold as Dansby Swanson?
Yeah, I think Ke'Bryan Hayes, if you listen to the full Fantasy Baseball Today podcast, you know that I like Ke'Bryan Hayes quite a bit. Probably, at least the way this season has gone, too much. But Ke'Bryan Hayes, he's got good plate discipline. He's an outrageously good defender, which doesn't necessarily matter for our prospect purposes, but makes him a good baseball player. He's fast, he runs, and he hits the ball really hard. Ke'Bryan Hayes is consistently putting up very solid, 80, 90th percentile average exit velocity, and he just hits the ball on the ground too much. And so he's only got the 4 home runs. I think there's the potential for just very small tweaks in his game to, really pay dividends. And I'm going to keep trying to buy Ke'Bryan Hayes and see if he breaks out because, he could be a 2020 guy with a good batting average in a best case scenario.
All right.
And I'll also throw out Jesse Winker, who we've seen the last couple of games before the All-Star break starting to show some signs after coming back from that suspension. He kind of reworked his batting stance. I think his setup is a little more up and down, and hit 2 home runs in his first 2 games back. It was a doubleheader, and then had multiple hits in the next game. So I do think there's some signs of Jesse Winker coming around. He's been a very good hitter the past couple of years. Seattle hasn't been kind to him, but I think he'll be better in the second half.
I'm going to stick with the Mariners, and I will give you Mitch Haniger. Hopefully he returns by the end of July. He's been out a couple of months with his ankle injury, but we've seen big power in the past and some really productive seasons from Mitch Haniger. So he's entering the final year. He's currently in the final year of his contract. So, I think he needs a big last couple of months here and try and get a nice little contract in the offseason. Julio Rodriguez, one of the top prospects in the game coming into the season. He obviously is the breakout in the first half. Chris, is there a prospect or two that you could see having a much better second half?
Yeah, I would throw out Spencer Torkelson, who was kind of the other top prospect, along with Jared Kelenic, who I'll also throw out there in drafts this season. Them, Bobby Witt, Julio Rodriguez were the top rookies we were targeting, and Tork hasn't shown much at the major league level. He's got average plate discipline right now. He's got, average-ish quality of contact metrics, but the one thing I really like is the underlying plate discipline stuff, the chase rate, the whiff rate, that actually rates out really well. And he's managed to do that while having, the average-ish quality of contact metrics. We know he's a very talented hitter who can hit the ball very hard when he gets into it. And I just think there's a chance that things are going to click for him and he's going to put up big numbers. And then Kelenic, he's hitting really well in AAA, and maybe he's just a quad A guy. Joe Adell has kind of fallen in that trap recent years too, although I'm excited to see if he gets an opportunity moving forward. But yeah, Kelenic, he had, one of the hardest hit home runs by a left-handed batter this season. I think it was 115 miles per hour. So there's obviously still physical talent that he can tap into. And I just think it's worth betting on the post-type breakouts like that.
Yeah, look, progress is not linear. You hear that a lot. It's kind of cliche when we talk about prospects, but look at Byron Buxton. It took him years to kind of get to the player he is now, and even on the pitching side, Lucas Giolito, it took an entire new organization and new pitching coach to figure him out. So sometimes it takes a while for some of these prospects, and for me, in the second half, I do like a Detroit Tiger as well in Riley Greene. He's been leading off for the team. He's got good plate discipline. He's hitting the ball hard. A lot of it is on the ground right now, so I think one tweak, few more line drives, fly balls, we could see some of that power, and I do think he has speed, so hopefully some power and speed there for Riley Greene here in the second half. The pitchers, Shane O'Mac, Shane McClanahan, one of the biggest breakouts in the first half of the season, and his archetype, he was a prospect coming in. He's got nasty stuff. Chris, is there someone who fits that mold that you like buying for the second half?
Yeah, a little peek behind the curtain here. We initially had this as Shane Baz, and we had to re-record it after Baz suffered an elbow injury. So I'm just going to, we'll just replace all mentions of Shane Baz with Max Meyer, who is was called up by the Marlins. By the time you hear this, he'll have made his first start, and hopefully it went well. We're technically recording this before he starts, but I'm very, very excited to see what Max Meyer can do. He throws in the high 90s with his fastball. The slider is like a 70 grade pitch. It's an elite pitch, according to the scouts, and the changeup has been really good over the past couple of years now that he's developed it, which is what the Marlins do. All these pitchers have great changeups for them. So really excited to see what Max Meyer can do. He's, a top 20 prospect in baseball on a lot of lifts entering the midseason, and, could be a real impact arm down the stretch.
I like Aaron Ashby still, Chris. I know he dealt with some injuries recently in the forearm.
Yep.
That's some scary stuff, admittedly, but he throws mid to upper 90s as a left-handed pitcher. He's got great secondary stuff, gets a ton of whiffs, gets a lot of ground balls. He does have to rein in the control a little bit, but he pitches for a great organization. The run support should be there. It's a good division to pitch in as well. I think we could see a big second half from Aaron Ashby, assuming that he can stay healthy. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.